Welcome to the Shingyo Temple Sermon series, and this is the second story of the Buddha's life, and we try to learn something from his story. Now, the first, his story said, I saw old people in town. Aging scared me. I saw sick persons. Being sick scared me. I saw dead persons. Death scared me. I had to deal with persons I hated. Unwanted human relations scared me. I could not get what I wanted. I suffered for the unsatisfied desires. I was so irritated and angry for poor conditions of my mind and spirituality. I recognized so many sufferings around me. Were we born to be suffered so much? Now, this story was about his situations at the time before he decided to leave the house to find the true enlightenment. Now, what we can learn from here is that first, the Buddha already recognized some of his truth, even though he didn't notice that. That first of all, sufferings. Suffering is usually represented by birth, aging, illness, and death. Now, everybody worry about, aging, the illness, or death. I worry about my death too. But what are the fundamental characteristics of sufferings? Instead of just look at the death as death, scary death, but you have to think, why death is suffering? Why illness is suffering? The Buddha noticed, well, at this moment he noticed, but even he didn't notice that he noticed. But the truth is that the sufferings are there because we cannot control sufferings. That means everything will change. Okay, everything will change, then nothing. We cannot control nothing. So such kind of uncontrollable situations are suffering. So if you accept changes as they are, maybe we can minimize suffering. That means acceptance of the truth. Suffering will exist, and we know why. That means we have desire to control it. However, we know we can't control it because sufferings are caused by changes. So let's accept changes. That means we accept sufferings. Once we accept sufferings, the suffering will be reduced. The reason is that we will not have desire to control something we can't control. Okay, this is a very important point because suffering there. But if we don't recognize sufferings as sufferings, the suffering will not exist. And once we can take care of causes of suffering, which is our desire to control something we can't control, then our desire is gone. That means basically we don't care about changes. We have enough tolerance, we have enough brave heart, spirituality to accept sufferings as they are. See, the pre-sectarian Buddhism, of course the Buddha himself, we are so realistic, we are so brave, we are so spiritual because we just accept suffering. We are not going to fight with suffering because we can't win. But if we accept suffering, we actually win over the suffering because suffering cannot suffer us anymore. Okay? So this is something Buddha noticed, even though he recognized that he noticed the truth. So he found sufferings, then he found the causes of suffering, and somehow he noticed how we can actually eliminate suffering. Acceptance. Okay? Now, another thing we can learn from this story is that somehow Buddha noticed the distinction of three subjects: body and mind and consciousness. Somehow what he said as a suffering for your body and mind, these will not suffer your consciousness. So if you can use a subject, which is consciousness, to experience a nirvana, which is consciousness cannot experience suffering, so consciousness will experience nirvana. In other words, only consciousness can be identical to the nirvana. If you can purify the consciousness, you have a chance to experience suffering-free conditions. Then if you manage conditions of body and mind, you can actually minimize suffering as well. See, that's why three subjects are always important for pre-sectarian Buddhism. You try to optimize the balance of the mind and body and consciousness. Okay? Then you try to actually maintain the best possible condition of mind and body to minimize existing suffering. Not deny it, not try to control it, but just accept it. You have to have a healthy body and healthy mind to accept it. Once you accept it, you actually minimize the suffering, correct? Then you actually purify your consciousness to actually experience the nirvana. Experience the suffering-free conditions. That's why meditation is important. Meditation will give your consciousness chances to be identical to the nirvana, identical to the nothingness. Being selfless means being nothing. That means experiencing nirvana. Okay? Now, the last one we can learn from this story is that Buddha gave us the major question: why we have suffering. If you can answer why we have suffering, which we already have the answer, but we have to really answer through our experience, through our practice. You really have to experience minimization of sufferings. See, the pre-sectarian Buddhism is not about knowledge. Pre-sectarian Buddhism is about experience. Everybody has to experience just like a Buddha experienced. It's not about theories. If you want the pre-sectarian Buddhist to achieve the final salvation like the Buddha did, you're not gonna use your intelligence. You're gonna use your three subjects to experience the truth. Only your three subjects recognize suffering-free conditions. Think, if you have so many ideas about, oh yeah, this will be nirvana or this will be suffering-free condition, but if you don't experience, doesn't mean anything. Okay? So from this story, you learn the basic natures, characteristics of suffering, and possible way to minimize and also eliminate suffering. And also importance of the three subjects to experience suffering-free conditions. Then, last one is the major question for the pre-sectarian Buddhist: why we have suffering. I hope you understand what we're talking about. Then if you have questions, please send me email, or you can contact me actually from the webpage, and I will answer to you. Thank you very much for listening. May the Buddha be with us all. Thank you.